The rain hammered against our kitchen windows like nature's own interrogation technique. Lena set her fork down with the precision of a surgeon placing a scalpel. She'd been building up to something all evening. I could tell by the way she kept rearranging her salad, moving cherry tomatoes around like chess pieces. "So," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone wives use when they are about to drop a bomb disguised as casual conversation, "Trent needs a place to stay for a week." I kept chewing my chicken, buying time. Trent Ardell, her ex-boyfriend from college, the crypto entrepreneur who posted shirtless gym selfies and drove a Tesla he couldn't actually afford, the man who'd been texting my wife at midnight for the past 6 months. "Trent," I repeated, like I was trying to place the name. "Your ex-boyfriend, Trent." "He's just a friend now, Finn. We've talked about this." Lena's fingers drummed against the table. "He's between apartments in Portland, and you know how expensive hotels are." I set down my fork and smiled. Really smiled. The kind of smile that probably should have warned her. "Perfect," I said. "His current girlfriend, Kara, is also just a friend of mine. She's coming too." Lena's fork froze halfway to her mouth. A piece of lettuce dropped back onto her plate with a soft plop. "I'm sorry. What?" "Kara Venner. Lovely woman. Social media marketing, I think. She mentioned she was flying in Tuesday for some client meetings. I already told her she could take the guest room across the hall." The color drained from Lena's face like someone had pulled a plug. She hadn't known I knew about Kara. More importantly, she hadn't known that Kara was Trent's current girlfriend, or at least she was supposed to be. "I didn't realize you knew anyone named Kara," Lena said carefully. "Oh, we've been chatting for weeks now. Small world, right? Turns out we have a mutual friend." I took another bite of chicken. Funny how these things work out. Lena excused herself to use the bathroom. I heard the door lock, then the muffled sound of frantic whispering. She was probably calling Trent, trying to figure out how much I actually knew. The answer was everything. While she conducted her crisis management session, I walked to my home office. The smart house system I'd installed last year wasn't just for convenience, it was for documentation. Every device connected to our network, every call made through our Wi-Fi, every location ping from phones linked to our family plan. All of it backed up to a server Lena didn't know existed. I opened the folder labeled Evidence on my computer. 6 months of data, organized by date and cross-referenced by location. Call logs showing 47 conversations between Lena and Trent, ranging from 3 minutes to 2 hours. Location data proving they'd been in the same cities on 12 different occasions when Lena claimed to be at work conferences or visiting her sister. But the real prize was the financial trail. Our joint vacation fund, the money we'd been saving for a trip to Ireland, had been systematically drained over the past 4 months. $43,000, transferred in small amounts to avoid triggering bank alerts. The destination was a cryptocurrency wallet registered to one Trent Michael Ardell. I had the blockchain receipts. Every transaction, time-stamped and immutable. Lena thought she was being clever, moving money through 3 different accounts before the final transfer. She didn't realize that digital currency leaves a trail more permanent than carved stone. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I'd memorized but never saved in my contacts. "Is she freaking out yet?" I typed back. "Bathroom crisis call, right on schedule." "Perfect. Did you tell her about the hotel?" Saving that for dessert. Kara Venner wasn't my lover, or even really my friend. She was Trent's ex-girlfriend, the one before Lena. She'd reached out 3 weeks ago after finding suspicious texts on Trent's phone. Texts from my wife, making plans that definitely weren't platonic. Kara had her own reasons for wanting Trent exposed. Turns out he'd been juggling multiple relationships for years, promising each woman she was the one, while maintaining others on the side. Lena was just the latest in a long line of women who thought they were special. But Kara had uncovered something even more interesting. Trent had gotten married 9 months ago. A destination wedding in Costa Rica to a woman named Isabella Restrepo. He'd never divorced Kara first. Technically, he was still married to her from a ceremony in Vegas 2 years ago that he'd insisted was just for fun. Lena was going to be wife number 3. She just didn't know it yet. The bathroom door opened, and Lena emerged, looking like she'd seen a ghost. Her phone was clutched in her hand, knuckles white. "You know what?" she said, her voice artificially bright. "I think Trent's visit might be a bad idea after all. I just realized how crowded the house would be with guests." "Oh, but I already told Kara she could come. I'd hate to disappoint her." I pulled up the hotel confirmation on my phone. "Besides, I'm sure Trent won't mind staying at the Kimpton downtown. I see someone already made a reservation there for next week." I turned the phone screen toward her. The booking confirmation showed clearly. Lena Morell and Trent Ardell. Honeymoon suite, 5 nights. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, desperate calculation. "Finn, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. But first, why don't you call Trent back and tell him the visit is canceled?" She stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out how much damage control was possible. Then she picked up her phone and typed rapidly. "Don't come. Ever." The message delivered with a soft whoosh. "There," she said. "Happy now?" I smiled again, the same smile that should have warned her earlier. "Actually, no. We're just getting started." The rain kept hammering against the windows, but inside our kitchen, the silence was deafening. Lena sat across from me, her dinner untouched, while I calmly finished my chicken. She kept glancing at her phone, waiting for Trent's response to her cancellation text. When it came, her face went pale again. "Problem?" I asked. "He's confused. He wants to know what changed." "Tell him the truth. Tell him his current girlfriend is coming to visit, and things might get awkward." "Kara isn't his current girlfriend," Lena said quickly. "They broke up months ago." I pulled up Kara's Instagram on my phone, scrolled to a photo from last weekend. Trent and Kara at a restaurant in Portland, his arm around her shoulders, her hand resting on his chest. The caption read, "Date night with my favorite crypto king." Funny, they look pretty current to me. Lena's phone buzzed again. Then again. Trent was calling now, probably demanding explanations she couldn't give without admitting everything. "Aren't you going to answer?" I asked. She declined the call. "This is insane, Finn. You're being paranoid and controlling, and honestly, this is exactly why our marriage has been struggling. You don't trust me, you spy on me." "I spy on you." I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Lena, I'm a home automation consultant. I install security systems for a living. Our entire house is monitored, recorded, and backed up to the cloud. Every device, every network connection, every digital footprint. It's not spying when it's my own house and my own network." Her mouth opened, then closed. "Besides," I continued, "you gave me access to your phone 2 years ago. Remember? When you wanted me to fix that syncing issue with your photos? You never changed the permissions." The truth was even simpler than that. Lena had been careless, sloppy. She'd used our shared computer to book hotels, used our joint credit card for romantic dinners, used our family phone plan to coordinate with Trent. Every digital breadcrumb had been automatically archived by systems she'd forgotten existed. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "About Trent? Since January. About the money? Since March. About the hotel room? Since you booked it last week." "Then why didn't you say anything?" I considered the question. Why hadn't I confronted her immediately? Why had I spent months collecting evidence instead of demanding answers? "Because I wanted to see how far you'd go," I said finally. "I wanted to understand exactly who I married." Her phone buzzed with another text. This time she read it, and her expression shifted from panic to confusion. "What does it say?" I asked. "It's not from Trent. It's from someone named Kara. She says she's looking forward to meeting me." I smiled. I told you she was a lovely woman. Lena's hands were shaking now. "Finn, what is this? What are you doing?" "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. You wanted Trent to visit? Great. You wanted to play house with your boyfriend? Perfect. But we're going to do it my way, with all the cards on the table." "I never wanted. This isn't what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Lena? What was the plan? Trent stays here for a week, you sneak around behind my back in my own house? Or were you planning to tell me you needed some space, maybe take a little vacation to figure things out? A vacation that happened to coincide with a certain hotel reservation?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. My phone chimed with a text from Kara. "Package delivered. Check your email." I opened my laptop and found a forwarded message thread between Trent and Isabella Restrepo, wife number 2, the one from Costa Rica. Kara had been busy making introductions, it seemed. Isabella was very interested to learn about Trent's other relationships, particularly the one with the woman who'd been sending him money. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said, closing the laptop. "I actually liked Trent when you first mentioned him. Successful entrepreneur, good-looking guy, seemed to make you happy when you talked about the old days. I was even a little jealous." "Finn, but then I did some research. Professional curiosity, you understand. And it turns out Trent isn't quite the success story he pretends to be. His crypto ventures have lost money consistently for 3 years. His Tesla is leased, not owned. His Portland apartment is a sublet he can't afford." I pulled up another file on my phone. He's been borrowing money from a series of women, promising each one she's special, that they're building a future together. You're number 6, Lena. 6 women in 4 years, all following the same pattern. Her face had gone from pale to ashen. The money you've been sending him? It wasn't for investment opportunities or business ventures. It was rent money, grocery money, gas money for a car he can't afford to keep. That's not true. I have his bank statements, Lena. Kara provided them. Every deposit you made went straight to basic living expenses. You've been subsidizing his lifestyle while he courts his next mark. The kitchen fell silent, except for the rain against the windows. Lena stared at her untouched dinner, her phone dark on the table between us. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to understand that this isn't just about the affair. This isn't about hurt feelings or broken trust. This is about the fact that you stole $43,000 from our joint account to support a con artist who was planning to abandon you the moment he found someone with deeper pockets. I was going to pay it back. With what money? Your salary barely covers your car payment and shopping habits. The only reason we've been able to save anything is because I've been covering 90% of our expenses for the past 2 years. She looked up at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Not shame or regret, but calculation. She was trying to figure out her next move, how to minimize the damage. If you want a divorce, fine, she said. We can work something out. Split things fairly. Split things fairly, I repeated. Like the house I bought before we got married, like the business I built while you were texting your boyfriend, like the retirement accounts I've been funding while you drained our savings. I have rights, Finn, legal rights. Yes, you do. But you also have legal obligations, like not committing financial fraud, like not using joint assets for personal affairs, like not forging my signature on credit applications. Her face went white. I never forged. I pulled up another document on my phone, a credit card application from 2 months ago, with both our signatures, for an account I'd never seen before, an account that had been used exclusively for Trent-related expenses. The signature analysis is already done, I said. Professional handwriting expert, admissible in court. You're not very good at forgery, Lena. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need some air, she said. Good idea, but when you come back, we're going to talk about what happens next. And Lena, Kara really is coming Tuesday. We have a lot to discuss. She walked to the front door, grabbed her jacket, and stepped out into the rain. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for several minutes, probably calling Trent again, or maybe her sister, or her best friend Aaron. It didn't matter who she called. By now, Kara had already reached out to most of Lena's social circle, sharing just enough information to plant seeds of doubt. Not malicious gossip, just concerned questions about Lena's friend Trent and whether anyone else had noticed the expensive dinners and weekend trips that didn't quite add up. My phone buzzed with a message from Mason, my business partner and closest friend. Heard through the grapevine that Lena's having some kind of crisis. Everything okay? The grapevine in our town moved faster than fiber optic internet. By tomorrow morning, half the neighborhood would know that something was happening at the Morell house. By Tuesday, when Kara arrived, everyone would be watching to see how it played out. I typed back, everything's fine, just some house guests coming to visit. Need backup? Mason was a contractor, 6'4" and built like the linebacker he'd been in high school. More importantly, he was one of the few people who'd never liked Lena, though he'd been polite enough to keep his opinions to himself. Maybe. I'll let you know. Lena came back inside 20 minutes later, soaked and shivering. She'd been crying, her makeup was streaked and her eyes were red. I talked to Trent, she said. And? He says Kara is lying, that she's his ex and she's trying to cause trouble because she's jealous. What about Isabella? Lena's face crumpled. Who's Isabella? I showed her the wedding photos Kara had sent. Trent in a white linen shirt and khakis, standing on a beach with a beautiful dark-haired woman in a flowing dress. The caption read, Mr. and Mrs. Ardell, Costa Rica, 2023. He's married, Lena. Legally married. Whatever he promised you, whatever future you thought you were building together, it was never real. She sank into her chair, staring at the photos. I don't understand. He said he loved me. He said we were going to travel together, maybe start a business. He said that to all of them. It's what he does. It's what con artists do. I'm not some naive girl, Finn. I'm 32 years old. I have a career. I'm not stupid. No, you're not stupid. But you were lonely, and he's good at what he does. He found your weak spots and exploited them. She looked up at me with something like hope. So you understand? You know it wasn't really about you. It was about you stealing money from our joint account to fund your affair, about you lying to me for 6 months, about you booking hotel rooms and planning to leave me for a married con artist, The hope died in her eyes. No, Lena. I understand how it happened, but that doesn't excuse what you did, and it doesn't change what happens next. What happens next? I closed my laptop and stood up. Next, you sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow, you call your sister and tell her you need a place to stay for a while. Tuesday, Kara arrives, and we all have a conversation about the future. And if I don't want to do any of that, then you can call a lawyer and explain to them how you plan to defend against charges of financial fraud, identity theft, and adultery in a state where those things still matter in divorce proceedings. She stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to find some angle I hadn't considered, some leverage she could use. The house is in my name, I said quietly. The business is in my name, the cars are in my name. The only thing we own jointly is a bank account you've already emptied and credit cards you've maxed out. You have your salary, your personal checking account, and whatever's left in your 401k after you borrowed against it last year. I never borrowed against my 401k. I pulled up one more document. Loan application, filed in September, $20,000, used for what you described as home improvements. Funny thing is, I don't remember any home improvements. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Trent, probably. Or maybe from Erin, or her sister, or one of the other people who would soon be asking uncomfortable questions about her recent behavior. Go to bed, Lena. We'll finish this conversation when Kara gets here. She gathered up her phone and jacket, then paused at the kitchen doorway. For what it's worth, I never meant for things to go this far. I know, I said, but they did. After she went upstairs, I sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the rain and thinking about the past 6 months, all the late nights when she claimed to be working, all the weekend conferences that required her to stay overnight in hotels, all the times she'd been distant, distracted, checking her phone constantly. I'd known something was wrong, but I'd chosen to investigate rather than confront. Maybe that made me calculating, maybe it made me cold, but it also meant I had options now that I wouldn't have had if I'd simply accused her based on suspicion. My phone chimed with a final text from Kara. Flight lands at 2 p.m. Tuesday. Are you ready for this? I typed back, more than ready. Outside, the rain was finally starting to ease, but inside our house, the real storm was just beginning. Tuesday morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of persistent drizzle that makes everything look washed out and depressing. Perfect weather for what I had planned. Lena had spent the previous day in full damage control mode, making hushed phone calls and sending rapid-fire texts. She'd called in sick to work, claiming a migraine, and had barely left the guest room except to grab coffee and stare at me with a mixture of fear and resentment. I'd used the time productively. A visit to my lawyer confirmed what I already knew. Lena's financial activities gave me significant leverage in any divorce proceedings. A call to our bank resulted in the freezing of our joint accounts pending investigation of unauthorized transfers. And a conversation with my accountant revealed that Lena had been claiming business expenses on our taxes for activities that definitely weren't business-related. The paper trail was devastating. Hotel rooms in cities where she claimed to be attending conferences, but the conferences didn't exist. Restaurant charges for 2 people when she was supposedly traveling alone for work. Gas station purchases hundreds of miles from where she was supposed to be. But the real prize was the communication records. Not just the calls and texts between Lena and Trent, but the group chat Kara had discovered between Trent and his various romantic interests. A chat where he rated his prospects based on their financial potential and discussed strategies for extracting maximum value from each relationship. Lena was listed as Portland wife in his contacts. Her rating was 7 out of 10, good earning potential, but not wealthy enough for long-term commitment. The plan was to drain her savings over 6 months, then move on to Seattle doctor, who apparently had much better prospects. I was printing out the most damning screenshots when Lena appeared in my office doorway, holding a cup of coffee like a shield. We need to talk, she said. We will, when Kara gets here. Finn, please. Can't we handle this privately, between us? I looked up from the printer. You mean the way you handled your relationship with Trent privately? The way you handled our joint finances privately? That's not fair? Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about the credit card bill that arrived yesterday. $1,500 at Victoria's Secret last month. I'm assuming that wasn't for my benefit. Her cheeks flushed. I needed new things. For work. For work, or for work trips that happened to coincide with Trent's travel schedule? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to my computer. Kara lands at 2. I'm picking her up at the airport. We'll be back here by 3:30. You can either be here for that conversation, or you can be somewhere else. But either way, the conversation is happening. What kind of conversation? The kind where we discuss what Trent has been telling each of his girlfriends about the others. The kind where we compare notes on his promises and his lies. The kind where we figure out exactly how much money he's stolen from how many women. Lena's face went pale. Stolen is a strong word. What would you call it? You gave him money based on false pretenses. He promised you a future he had no intention of delivering. That's textbook fraud. He never asked for the money. I offered it. I pulled up another screenshot from the group chat. Trent's message to someone named Brad, apparently a friend or business partner. Portland wife is good for another $20K easy. She's so desperate to believe we're building something together. I just have to mention cash flow problems, and she practically throws money at me. I turned the screen toward Lena. She read it twice, her expression shifting from denial to humiliation to anger. He wrote that about me? He wrote a lot of things about you, about all of you. Kara has the complete chat history going back 2 years. Lena sank into the chair across from my desk, her coffee forgotten. I feel so stupid, she whispered. You should. But stupid isn't the same as innocent. You still chose to lie to me. You still chose to steal from our joint account. You still chose to book hotel rooms and plan a future with another man. I know I messed up. But can't we work through this? Can't we go to counseling or something? I studied her face, looking for genuine remorse. What I saw instead was desperation. She wasn't sorry about the affair or the lies or the theft. She was sorry about getting caught. Tell me about the business plan, I said. What business plan? The one you and Trent were going to start together. The one you mentioned to your sister last week when you thought I wasn't listening. Her eyes widened. You were eavesdropping on my phone calls? I was sitting in my own living room while you talked loudly in the kitchen. But let's not get distracted. Tell me about the business. She was quiet for a long moment, probably trying to figure out how much I already knew. It was just an idea. Trent knows about cryptocurrency, and I know about marketing and operations. We thought maybe we could start something together. With what capital? Well, we had some savings. We had savings. You gave our savings to him without asking me. I was going to tell you. When? Before or after you left me for him? She didn't answer. My phone buzzed with a text from Kara. Landed early. Taking a cab to your place. ETA 20 minutes. I showed Lena the message. She's on her way. Finn, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. Don't humiliate me like this. Humiliate you? Lena, you humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone has accurate information. What do you want from me? What will it take for you to call this off? I considered the question seriously. What did I want? An apology? An explanation? A promise that it would never happen again? None of those things would undo the past 6 months. None of them would restore the trust that had been shattered. None of them would change the fact that the woman I'd married had revealed herself to be someone I didn't recognize. I want you to face the consequences of your choices, I said finally. I want you to understand that actions have results, and I want you to stop pretending that this is something that happened to you instead of something you did. The doorbell rang. Kara had arrived. Last chance, I said, standing up. You can be part of this conversation, or you can hide upstairs and let us have it without you. But either way, it's happening. Lena followed me to the front door, her coffee cup clutched in both hands like a life preserver. I opened the door to find a woman in her early 30s with short auburn hair and intelligent green eyes. She was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5'4", but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd been through hell and come out stronger. You must be Finn, she said, extending her hand. I'm Kara. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming. This is Lena. Kara turned to my wife with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So nice to finally meet you. Trent has told me so much about you. Lena's grip tightened on her coffee cup. Has he? Oh yes. You're quite the topic of conversation in his group chat. Portland wife, right? That's what he calls you. The coffee cup slipped from Lena's hands and shattered on the hardwood floor. Hot liquid splashed across her shoes and the front of her jeans. Oops, Kara said mildly. Let me help you clean that up. While Lena went to change clothes and I mopped up the coffee, Kara settled herself on our living room couch and pulled out a tablet. I brought everything, she said. Chat logs, financial records, photos, videos, 2 years' worth of documentation on Trent's activities. Videos? He likes to record himself. Motivational speeches about his business success, mostly. But sometimes he forgets to turn off the camera. Very illuminating. Lena returned, wearing a different pair of jeans and a guarded expression. She perched on the edge of an armchair as far from Kara as possible. So, Kara said brightly, should we start with a timeline, or would you prefer to jump straight to the financial analysis? Timeline, I said. I want to understand the full scope. Kara swiped through her tablet and pulled up a spreadsheet. Trent and I met 3 years ago. We were together for about 18 months, during which time I loaned him approximately $60,000 for various business ventures and personal expenses. Lena's eyes widened. 60,000? I'm a software consultant. I make good money, and I believed in his potential. Anyway, about a year and a half ago, he started pulling away, said he needed space to focus on his business. Then I found out he'd gotten married. To you? Lena asked, confused. No, to Isabella, wife number 2. Our Vegas ceremony was apparently just for fun, not legally binding, though he forgot to mention that to me at the time. I leaned forward. So you're not actually married to him? Nope. Turns out the Elvis impersonator we hired wasn't licensed to perform real ceremonies. Trent knew that. I didn't. But Isabella? Oh, that one's real. Costa Rica recognizes their marriage. She's been sending him money too, by the way. About $30,000 over the past 6 months. Lena looked sick. How many of us are there? Kara consulted her tablet. Current active relationships? 4, including you and Isabella. Historical total? At least 12 that I can document. 12 women? 12 women who've given him money. There have been others who were smart enough to cut things off before the financial request started. I pulled out my own folder of evidence. Show her the group chat. Kara swiped to a new screen. This is where it gets interesting. Trent has a private chat with 3 other men. I think they're business associates, or maybe just friends. They share strategies for what they call relationship optimization. She began reading from the screen. Portland wife update. Extracted another $8K this month. She thinks we're planning a future together. So pathetic how desperate she is for attention. Lena made a small sound, like air being let out of a balloon. Here's another one, Kara continued. Seattle doctor is getting suspicious about my other commitments. May need to cut her loose soon. Portland wife is more gullible anyway. Stop, Lena whispered. Oh, but this is the best part. From last week, Portland wife wants me to visit for a week. Perfect opportunity to clean out the rest of her accounts. Her husband seems like a pushover, shouldn't be a problem. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. He called me a pushover? Multiple times. He was quite confident that you wouldn't cause any trouble. Lena was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't believe he wrote those things about me. Believe it, Kara said, not unsympathetically. I felt the same way when I first saw what he'd written about me. But here's the thing. Being humiliated by a con artist doesn't make you unique, it makes you human. What matters is what you do next. What did you do? Lena asked. I started collecting evidence. I reached out to the other women. I built a case. Kara looked at me. And when I found out about you, I decided it was time to burn his whole operation to the ground. I liked Kara. She was smart, methodical, and angry in a productive way. She reminded me of myself. What's the plan? I asked. Well, that depends on what you want to accomplish. Do you want your money back? Do you want him arrested? Do you want him publicly exposed? All of the above? All of the above, I said immediately. Lena looked up from her tears. Arrested? For what? Wire fraud, for starters, Kara said. He's been using electronic communications to obtain money under false pretenses across state lines. That's a federal crime. Then there's identity theft. He's been using fake business credentials to establish credibility with potential marks. Tax evasion. He hasn't reported any of the money he's received as income, and depending on the state, bigamy might still be prosecutable. But I gave him the money willingly, Lena protested, based on lies. He told you he was single and available for a relationship. He told you the money was for legitimate business investments. He told you he loved you and wanted to build a future together. All lies, all designed to extract money from you. That's fraud. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Trent's name appeared on the screen. Perfect timing, I said, answering on speakerphone. Trent, how are you, buddy? Finn? What the hell is going on? Lena won't answer her phone, and I'm getting weird messages from people. Weird messages? What kind of weird messages? Someone claiming to be my wife contacted me, and someone else saying they're going to expose me for fraud. This is crazy. I looked at Kara, who was grinning. Well, Trent, I'm sitting here with Lena and your friend Kara. Maybe they can help clear things up? Kara, he said finally, his voice tight. What is Kara doing there? She came to visit. You know, compare notes, share stories. It's been very educational. Finn, listen. I don't know what she's told you, but she's my ex and she's been harassing me for months. She's unstable. You can't believe anything she says. Kara leaned toward the phone. Hi, Trent. How's Isabella doing? I had such a nice chat with her yesterday." Another long silence. "I can explain everything," he said. "Great," I said cheerfully. "Why don't you come over? We're having quite the party here. Lena's been showing us all the sweet messages you sent her, and Kara's been sharing your business strategies. It's fascinating stuff." "I'm not coming anywhere near that house. You people are crazy." "Crazy? Trent, we're just trying to understand your business model. You know, the one where you juggle multiple relationships to extract maximum financial value from each woman. Portland wife was quite the earner, wasn't she?" "Well," Kara said, "that went better than expected." Lena was staring at the phone. "He hung up on us." "Of course he did. His whole game depends on keeping his marks isolated from each other. The moment we start comparing notes, his system falls apart." My phone immediately started buzzing with text messages from Trent. Threats, mostly, accusations, demands that I stop harassing him. "He's panicking," I observed. "Good," Kara said. "Panicked people make mistakes." She was right. Over the next hour, Trent sent increasingly desperate messages to all three of us. To Lena, he claimed that Kara and I were conspiring against him out of jealousy. To me, he insisted that Lena had been the pursuer in their relationship, and he was just trying to let her down easy. To Kara, he offered to pay back some of the money she'd loaned him if she would stop spreading lies. Each message contradicted the others. Each one revealed more about his desperation and his methods. "We should document all of this," I said, taking screenshots. "Already on it," Kara replied, showing me her own phone. "I've been forwarding everything to Isabella and the other women too. They deserve to know what kind of man they're involved with." Lena had been quiet for most of this exchange, absorbing the reality of her situation. Finally, she looked up at us. "What happens to me now?" she asked. It was a good question. What did happen to the wife who'd been caught in an affair with a con artist? What happened to the woman who'd stolen money from her marriage to fund a relationship that was never real? "That depends," I said. "What do you want to happen?" "I want to undo all of this. I want to go back to before I met him." "Can't be done. But you can decide how you move forward from here." "What are my options?" I looked at Kara, who nodded encouragingly. "Option 1, I said. "You can keep pretending you're a victim in all this. You can claim you were manipulated and deceived, which is partially true. You can try to minimize your responsibility and hope people feel sorry for you. Or, Option 2, you can own what you did. You can admit that you chose to have an affair, chose to steal money, chose to lie to me for months. You can face the consequences of those choices and try to make amends." "What kind of consequences?" "Legal consequences, for starters. You committed fraud when you forged my signature on that credit application. You committed theft when you transferred money from our joint account without permission. Depending on how vindictive I'm feeling, you could be looking at criminal charges." Her face went white. "Then there are the social consequences," Kara added. "This is a small town, right? People talk. Once this story gets out, and it will get out, like your reputation is going to take a hit." "And the financial consequences," I continued. "Divorce court, asset division, alimony discussions, all of it complicated by the fact that you've been systematically stealing from the marriage." Lena was crying again. "You're trying to destroy me." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure you understand the extent of the damage." "So what do you want from me? What will make this stop?" I thought about it seriously. What did I want from the woman who'd betrayed me so thoroughly? "I want you to help us stop him," I said finally. "What?" "Trent. He's not going to stop with you, or with Isabella, or with any of the others. He's going to keep doing this to women until someone makes him stop. You know his methods, his patterns, his weaknesses. Help us build a case that will put him away." Lena looked between Kara and me, probably trying to figure out if this was some kind of trap. "If I help you, what happens to me?" "That depends on how much you help and how genuine your cooperation is. But I can promise you this. If you work with us to stop him, I'll consider that when we discuss the terms of our divorce. And if I don't, then you face the consequences alone, and Trent keeps hurting people." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. "What would you need me to do?" she asked finally. Kara leaned forward. "We need you to keep communicating with him. Make him think you're still on his side, still willing to send money, get him to admit things in writing." "You want me to lie to him?" "We want you to give him enough rope to hang himself," I said. "Think of it as investigative journalism." "What if he finds out?" "Then he finds out. But right now, he thinks he still has a chance to salvage this situation. As long as he believes that, he'll keep talking." Lena nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. Good, Kara said, pulling up a new screen on her tablet. Let's start with his current financial situation. Based on his spending patterns, he should be running low on funds right about now. She was right. Over the next 2 hours, we mapped out Trent's entire operation. The rotation of women, the timing of financial requests, the promises and lies he used to maintain each relationship. It was a sophisticated system, refined over years of practice, but it was also fragile. It depended on secrecy, isolation, and the willingness of his victims to believe his lies. Once those elements were removed, the whole thing collapsed. By evening, we had a plan. Lena would continue communicating with Trent, feeding him just enough hope to keep him talking. Kara would coordinate with the other women to ensure everyone had the same information, and I would document everything, building a case that could be presented to law enforcement. There's one more thing, Kara said as she prepared to leave for her hotel. Trent's not going to take this lying down. Once he realizes what we're doing, he's going to fight back. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the man who'd called me a pushover, who'd planned to clean out my wife's bank accounts while staying in my house. Let him try, I said. After Kara left, Lena and I sat in our living room, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal. The printed screenshots, the financial records, the timeline of lies and deception. I really messed up, didn't I? She said. Yes, you did. Is there any chance we can get past this? Any chance we can rebuild? I looked at the woman I'd married 5 years ago, trying to see some trace of the person I'd fallen in love with. What I saw instead was a stranger who'd been living in my house, spending my money, and planning a future with another man. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I can't imagine trusting you again. But maybe, if you follow through on helping us stop Trent, if you face the consequences of what you've done, if you show me that you understand the magnitude of your betrayal, maybe we can find a way forward. What kind of way forward? I don't know that either, but it won't be the same marriage we had before. That marriage was built on lies and assumptions that turned out to be false. If we're going to have any kind of relationship, it has to be built on truth. She nodded, tears streaming down her face again. I'll do whatever it takes. We'll see, I said. Actions matter more than words at this point. That night, Lena slept in the guest room again, and I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the future. The woman downstairs wasn't the person I'd married, but she also wasn't entirely the villain in this story. She was something more complicated, a victim who'd become a perpetrator, a deceived woman who'd chosen to deceive in return. Whether that complexity was enough to build a new relationship on remained to be seen. But first, we had to finish what we'd started with Trent. My phone buzzed with a text message. Yas, this isn't over. You have no idea what you're messing with. I smiled in the darkness and typed back, looking forward to finding out. The real game was just beginning. The Cove Club sat at the end of Harbor Street like a weathered testament to small-town social hierarchies, half sports bar, half restaurant. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, and gossip flowed as freely as the overpriced craft beer. I'd chosen it deliberately for our next move. Wednesday evening found me nursing a whiskey at the bar, watching the regulars filter in for their weekly ritual of complaining about their jobs, their spouses, and the general state of the world. Mason sat beside me, his massive frame making the bar stool look like children's furniture. Remind me why we're doing this publicly? He asked, glancing around at the familiar faces. Because Trent's entire operation depends on secrecy, I said. He compartmentalizes his victims, keeps them isolated from each other. The moment his business becomes public knowledge, it falls apart. And you're sure he's coming? I checked my phone. Lena had been texting with Trent all day, following the script Kara had provided. She told him she was confused and scared, that she needed to see him in person to sort things out. She'd suggested meeting somewhere public, somewhere safe. The Cove Club was perfect. Familiar territory for her, neutral ground for him. He'll be here, I said. His ego won't let him stay away. Mason signaled the bartender for another beer. What about Lena? You trust her not to warn him? It was a fair question. Yesterday's cooperation could easily turn into today's betrayal, especially if Lena decided her interests were better served by siding with Trent. I don't trust her, I said, but I trust her self-interest. She knows that helping us is her only chance of avoiding criminal charges. And if she changes her mind? Then we proceed without her. The truth was, I had contingencies Lena didn't know about. Kara had been busy over the past 24 hours, reaching out to local contacts, spreading carefully crafted information through social media channels. By now, half the town had heard whispers about Lena's friend from Portland and his questionable business practices. The beauty of small-town gossip networks was their efficiency. You didn't need to tell everyone everything. You just needed to tell the right people the right amount, and the story would spread and evolve on its own. There, Mason said, nodding toward the door. Your boy's here. Trent Ardle walked into the Cove Club like he owned the place, all swagger and expensive casual wear. Designer jeans, Italian leather jacket, the kind of carefully cultivated scruff that cost more to maintain than most people's monthly grocery budget. He spotted me immediately. I'd made sure to sit where he couldn't miss me. For a moment, our eyes met across the crowded room. I raised my glass in a mock toast and smiled. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Recognition, anger, calculation, and finally, forced confidence. He straightened his shoulders and walked toward the bar like he'd been planning to sit next to me all along. Finn Morell, he said, sliding onto the stool on my other side. Fancy meeting you here. Small town, I replied. Everyone ends up at the Cove eventually. He ordered an expensive whiskey, top shelf, naturally, and made a show of pulling out a thick roll of cash to pay for it. Probably his last $100, but he wanted everyone to see it. So, he said, loud enough for nearby patrons to hear, I understand there's been some confusion about my relationship with Lena. Confusion? I kept my voice equally loud. I wouldn't call it confusion, more like clarification. Mason shifted slightly on his stool, a subtle reminder of his presence. Trent glanced at him nervously, probably recognizing the type of man who could break him in half without working up a sweat. Look, Finn, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Lena and I are old friends, nothing more. If she gave you the impression that something inappropriate was happening... She didn't give me any impression, I said, pulling out my phone. The hotel reservation did that. I showed him the screenshot of the Kimpton booking. His name and Lena's. Honeymoon suite, 5 nights. Several people at nearby tables were craning their necks to see what we were looking at. Trent's confident facade cracked slightly. That was just... We needed separate rooms, and that was all they had available. Separate rooms in a honeymoon suite? Mason asked, his voice carrying the kind of skeptical amusement that made people pay attention. That's some creative hotel management. A few chuckles from the surrounding tables. The crowd was warming up. Besides, I continued, it's not just the hotel, it's the money. What money? I pulled up another screenshot. The blockchain transaction records showing $43,000 transferred from our joint account to Trent's cryptocurrency wallet. This money, I said, holding the phone where everyone could see it. $43,000? From my wife's account to yours. For what exactly? The conversations at nearby tables had stopped. The Cove Club's regular entertainment was usually limited to whatever game was on the big screen, but we were providing something much more interesting. Trent was sweating now, despite the cool evening air. That was a business investment. Lena wanted to get involved in cryptocurrency trading. Funny thing about cryptocurrency, I said conversationally. Every transaction is permanently recorded. Public ledger, impossible to fake or alter. So when I see $43,000 go from my wife to you and then immediately get transferred to cover your rent, your car payment, and your credit card bills, well, that doesn't look much like a business investment. More murmurs from the crowd. Someone behind us whispered, 43,000? Holy hell. You don't know what you're talking about, Trent said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Tell me, Trent, how many other business partners do you have? How many other women have invested in your cryptocurrency ventures? His face went pale. I don't have to listen to this. He started to stand, but I caught his arm. Not roughly, I didn't want to give him any excuse to claim assault, but firmly enough to keep him in place. Actually, you do. See, Lena's inside, waiting to talk to you. She's been looking forward to this conversation all day. As if on cue, Lena appeared from the restaurant section of the club, looking nervous but determined. She'd dressed carefully for this encounter. Not too attractive, not too dowdy. The wronged wife seeking answers. Trent, she said, her voice carrying just the right note of hurt confusion. I'm so glad you came. The crowd was fully engaged now. This was better than reality TV. Real people, real drama, happening right in front of them. Trent looked trapped between Lena and me, with Mason's bulk blocking any easy escape route. Lena, we should talk privately. Why? She asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. We're all friends here, right? That's what you told me? That you and I were just friends. We are friends. Friends who book honeymoon suites together? A woman at a nearby table gasped audibly. Did she say honeymoon suite? Lena nodded toward the woman. 5 nights at the Kimpton, the presidential suite. Very romantic for just friends. Trent was looking around desperately, probably trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. but there was no salvaging it. Every word he said just dug the hole deeper. Lena, you're misunderstanding the situation. Am I? Then explain it to me. Explain why you needed $43,000 for business investments that turned out to be your personal expenses. That money was a loan? A loan? I interjected. Funny, I don't remember signing any loan documents. And since it came from our joint account, I would have had to sign, wouldn't I? The bartender had stopped pretending to work and was openly listening to our conversation. The entire club had gone quiet except for our voices and the low murmur of commentary from the audience. Look, Trent said, trying to regain control. This is between Lena and me. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Actually, said a new voice from behind us, it has everything to do with me. Kara had arrived, right on schedule. She looked professional and composed, the kind of woman who commanded attention without demanding it. Trent's face went white. Kara, what are you doing here? Same thing as everyone else. I'm trying to understand your business model. She pulled out her tablet and swiped to a familiar screen. Should I start with the group chat, or would you prefer I jump straight to the financial analysis? Group chat? Asked the woman at the nearby table. She was clearly invested in this drama now. Kara smiled at her. Oh yes, Trent and his friends have a private chat where they discuss their romantic relationships. Very educational stuff. She began reading from the screen, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent club. Portland wife update. Extracted another $8K this month. She thinks we're planning a future together. So pathetic how desperate she is for attention. The collective intake of breath from the crowd was audible. Lena had tears in her eyes. Whether real or performed, I couldn't tell. Portland wife, she said quietly. That's what you called me. Trent was frantically shaking his head. That's not real. She's making it up. She's my ex and she's trying to cause trouble. Am I? Kara swiped to another screen. What about this one? Seattle doctor is getting suspicious about my other commitments. May need to cut her loose soon. Portland wife is more gullible anyway. Seattle doctor? Asked Mason. How many women are we talking about here? Currently active relationships. 4 that I can document. Historical total over the past 3 years? At least 15. The murmur from the crowd was getting louder, more hostile. Trent was no longer just a cheating boyfriend. He was a predator who'd been systematically exploiting women. This is harassment, he said, standing up abruptly. I'm calling the police. Great idea, I said, pulling out my own phone. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your business practices. Wire fraud is a federal crime, you know. He stared at me, probably trying to figure out if I was bluffing. You want to call the police? I continued. Let's call them. Let's have them look at the financial records, the forged signatures, the false business credentials you've been using to establish credibility with your marks. Forged signatures? The bartender leaned forward. Like identity theft? Among other things, Kara said helpfully. He's quite creative with his documentation. Trent looked around the room, probably realizing that every face was turned toward him, with expressions ranging from disgust to fascination. This wasn't going according to any plan he might have had. I don't have to listen to this, he said, pushing past Mason toward the door. But Mason was ready for him. Without appearing to move quickly, he somehow ended up blocking Trent's path to the exit. Leaving so soon? Mason asked mildly. The conversation was just getting interesting. Get out of my way. Now that's not very polite, especially after you took all that money from folks. The crowd was fully on our side now. Trent had gone from potential romantic rival to obvious villain in the space of 15 minutes. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict. Let me through, Trent said, but his voice had lost all its earlier confidence. Sure thing, Mason said, stepping aside. But you might want to check your car before you drive anywhere. Trent's eyes widened. What did you do to my car? Me? Nothing. But parking meters in this town are tricky, easy to forget to feed them, and the tow trucks are real efficient. Through the window, we could see Trent's Tesla being loaded onto a flatbed truck. The timing was perfect. Mason had called in a favor with his cousin who worked for the towing company. That's my car. Not anymore, said the bartender cheerfully. Towed vehicles go to the impound lot. You can pick it up tomorrow, cash only, of course. Trent looked around the room one more time, probably searching for a sympathetic face. What he found instead was a room full of people who now knew exactly what kind of man he was. This isn't over, he said, pointing at me. Yes, it is, I replied calmly. It's been over since the moment you decided to call me a pushover. He left on foot, walking quickly down Harbor Street while the entire Cove Club watched through the windows. Someone started a slow clap, and soon the whole room was applauding. Well, said the bartender, refilling my glass, That was the best entertainment we've had in months. Better than the Patriots game last week, agreed a regular from the corner booth. Lena was still sitting at the bar, looking dazed. Is it really over? The public humiliation part is, I said. But we're not done with him yet. Kara was already typing on her tablet. I'm uploading the video to social media. By tomorrow morning, this will be all over town. Video? Lena asked. Security cameras, I explained, nodding toward the discreet cameras mounted around the club. The owner's a friend of Mason's. He was happy to make sure we got good coverage of tonight's events. Over the next hour, the story spread through the Cove Club's social network like wildfire. Phones came out, messages were sent, calls were made. By closing time, half the town would know about Trent Ardell and his romantic con games. But more importantly, his ability to operate in secret was gone. No more isolated victims, no more compartmentalized relationships. Everyone would know to be suspicious of the charming stranger with the expensive clothes and the cryptocurrency investment opportunities. What happens next? Lena asked as we prepared to leave. Next, we make sure he can't do this to anyone else, I said. How? I looked at Kara, who nodded. Tomorrow, we file a police report. Then we contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Then we reach out to every woman he's been involved with and help them understand their legal options. And me? What happens to me? It was the question I'd been dreading. What did happen to the wife who'd participated in her own deception, who'd been both victim and accomplice? That depends on you, I said finally. Tonight was a good start. You did what you said you'd do. But this is just the beginning. The beginning of what? The beginning of facing the consequences of your choices. All of them. As we walked out of the Cove Club, I could hear the conversations continuing behind us. The story would grow in the telling, details would be added and embellished, but the core truth would remain. Trent Ardell was a con artist who'd been exposed and humiliated in front of the entire town. It was a good start, but Kara was right. This wasn't over. Men like Trent didn't just disappear when their current scheme fell apart. They regrouped, found new hunting grounds, refined their techniques, but they also made mistakes when they were angry and desperate. And Trent was about to become very angry and very desperate indeed. My phone buzzed with a text message. You have no idea what you've started. I'm going to destroy you. I showed the message to Mason, who chuckled. Looks like he's taking this well, he said. Let him try, I replied. I'm just getting started. The real war was about to begin. Thursday morning brought the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything seem possible. I was drinking coffee on my front porch, watching the neighborhood wake up, when Detective Ray West pulled into my driveway. West was a good cop, methodical, fair, and smart enough to recognize the difference between justice and revenge. We'd worked together before when my security systems had captured evidence of break-ins around town. Morning, Finn, he said, climbing out of his patrol car. Heard you had some excitement at the Cove Club last night. News travels fast. Faster when there's video involved. My wife saw it on Facebook before I'd even finished my first cup of coffee. He settled into the chair beside me. Want to tell me what's really going on? I handed him a folder I'd prepared the night before. Financial records, communication logs, evidence of fraud and identity theft. Everything organized and documented according to law enforcement standards. My wife's been having an affair with a con artist named Trent Ardell. He's been systematically defrauding women across multiple states. Last night was just the opening act. West skimmed the files, his tone hardening. This is federal. Wire fraud, interstate crimes. Why involve me? Because Trent won't disappear quietly. He'll escalate, and when he does, I want local law enforcement ready. Before West could reply, my phone rang. Lena. Someone had broken into the house. We returned to find the back door forced and the house ransacked. My office took the worst hit. Drawers emptied, files searched. Amateur work, emotional. Someone desperate for evidence. Nothing important was gone. My data was encrypted and stored off-site. Then a text arrived. Looking for something? Check your email. The video showed Trent in a cheap motel, holding documents stolen from my house. He accused me of crimes, threatened to ruin my reputation, take my wife, my life. He laughed. West watched it twice. Anything here that can actually hurt you? No. But he's trying to manufacture scandal. The video gave away his location. Pineview Motel, room 12. West moved to get a warrant. I asked for 2 hours. Instead, I called Mason and Kara. We watched the motel until Trent left, then followed him to Lena's office. He tried to reach her, failed, called me instead. I confronted him in the parking lot. Public, calm. He panicked and fled. Back at the motel, Kara confirmed Trent had been making frantic long-distance calls. Wire fraud, multiple states, still scamming women. One had already wired him $5,000. Enough. We confronted him at his room. He opened the door with a baseball bat, then froze when he realized witnesses were watching and everything was being recorded. We laid it out: evidence, victims, federal charges. 43 women now connected and comparing notes. His entire operation exposed. He collapsed. I told him to stop, return the money, surrender. West texted, warrant secured, en route. Trent gave up. West arrested him minutes later. As they led him away, Trent spat, "This isn't justice, it's revenge." "Sometimes," I said, "they're the same." That night I went home. Lena stood in the wreckage of our kitchen, asking if it was over. "The criminal part is," I said, "but we still have our own reckoning." She cried. I didn't comfort her. Some damage can't be undone. And the hardest part was just beginning. 2 weeks after Trent's arrest, life in our small Maine town had settled into a new rhythm. The story of the cryptocurrency con artist and his web of romantic fraud had become local legend, told and retold in coffee shops and bars with the kind of embellishment that made small-town gossip an art form. But for me, the real story was just beginning. Lena had moved in with her sister temporarily while we figured out the terms of our separation. She came by the house twice a week to collect mail and personal items, conversations that were polite, careful, and utterly devoid of the intimacy that had once defined our marriage. I was in my office reviewing divorce paperwork when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Finn Morell, this is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. I understand you've been instrumental in building a case against Trent Ardell." "I provided some documentation, yes?" "More than some. Your evidence has helped us identify victims in 12 states. We're looking at charges that could put Ardell away for 20 years. "Good. There's just one problem. Ardell's lawyer is claiming that you orchestrated an elaborate revenge scheme, that you manipulated evidence and coerced his client into incriminating himself. He's trying to get the charges dismissed based on prosecutorial misconduct." I felt a familiar cold anger settle in my chest. Even from jail, Trent was still trying to manipulate the system. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Testimony, documentation, proof that your investigation was legitimate and that Ardell's crimes were real, not fabricated." "When?" "Next week. Federal courthouse in Portland. Are you willing?" "Absolutely." After I hung up, I sat in my office thinking about the past month. Everything that had happened, everything I'd done, had led to this moment. The chance to put Trent away permanently, to make sure he never hurt anyone else. But first, there was one more piece of business to handle. Erin Vasquez had been Lena's best friend since college. She was also, as I'd recently discovered, the next woman on Trent's list. The evidence was in the group chat logs Kara had provided. Messages between Trent and his associates discussing Portland wife's friend as a potential mark. Someone with a good job, no serious romantic attachments, and a history of poor financial decisions. Erin fit the profile perfectly. Marketing manager at a tech startup. Recently divorced, struggling with credit card debt from her failed marriage. She'd been asking Lena questions about Trent for weeks, supposedly out of concern, but actually out of interest. I'd been watching her social media activity, tracking her interactions with Trent's fake business profiles. She was falling for the same routine that had hooked Lena, the successful entrepreneur looking for the right woman to share his bright future. My doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I could see Erin standing on my front porch, looking nervous and determined. "Finn," she said when I opened the door. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About what you did to Trent, about what you're doing to Lena." I stepped aside to let her in. "Coffee?" "This isn't a social visit." We settled in the living room, Erin perched on the edge of the couch like she was ready to flee at any moment. "Lena told me what happened," she said. "How you set Trent up, how you manipulated the situation to make him look guilty." "Trent was guilty. The evidence was overwhelming." "Evidence you collected illegally. Evidence you used to destroy a man's life." I studied Erin's face, looking for signs of genuine conviction. What I saw instead was the desperate hope of someone who'd already started falling for Trent's lies. "He contacted you, didn't he?" I said. Her face flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "From jail. Trent contacted you somehow. Maybe through a friend, maybe through his lawyer. He told you his side of the story, convinced you that he was the real victim here." "That's ridiculous." I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot from Trent's group chat. A message from 3 weeks ago. "Portland wife's friend is showing interest. Good backup plan if the main operation fails." Erin's face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "From the same place I got all the other evidence. Trent kept detailed records of his cons, Erin, including his plans for you." She stared at the phone screen, probably trying to process what she was seeing. He called you last week, I continued. From jail. Told you he was innocent, that I'd framed him out of jealousy. Said he needed help proving his innocence, maybe a loan for legal fees. How could you possibly know that? Because it's what he does. It's what he's always done. Find vulnerable women, tell them what they want to hear, extract money and emotional support. Aaron stood up abruptly. You're paranoid, Finn. Just because Lena had an affair doesn't mean every woman in town is part of some conspiracy. You're right, I said. Not every woman, just the ones who fit his profile. Recently divorced, financially vulnerable, emotionally isolated. You check all the boxes, Aaron. I'm not isolated. Aren't you? When was the last time you had a serious relationship? When was the last time someone made you feel special, desired, like you were the most important person in their world? She didn't answer, but I could see the truth in her eyes. He's good at what he does, I said more gently. He finds your weak spots and exploits them, makes you feel like you're rescuing him instead of the other way around. Even if that were true, it doesn't excuse what you did. You destroyed his life. I exposed his crimes. There's a difference. Is there? Or are you just as manipulative as he is, just better at hiding it? It was a fair question. Over the past month, I'd orchestrated events, manipulated people, and used information as a weapon. I'd been calculating, methodical, and utterly ruthless in pursuing my goals. Maybe I am, I said, but my targets were people who deserved it. Trent was a predator. Lena was a thief and a liar. You're about to become his next victim. I'm not a victim. Then prove it. Walk away. Don't send him money. Don't visit him in jail. Don't get involved in his legal defense. If you're really not falling for his con, it should be easy. Aaron looked at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out if I was bluffing. And if I don't? Then you'll find out exactly how ruthless I can be when someone threatens people I care about. You care about me? I care about preventing Trent from hurting anyone else. If that means exposing your involvement with him, so be it. She gathered up her purse and headed for the door. You've changed, Finn. This whole situation has turned you into someone I don't recognize. Good, I said. The person you used to know was a pushover. Someone who let people walk all over him, who trusted too easily and forgave too quickly. That person got his wife stolen and his money taken by a con artist. And this new person? This new person fights back. After Aaron left, I sat in my living room thinking about her accusation. Had I changed? Had the process of exposing Trent and Lena transformed me into something darker? Probably, but I wasn't sure that was a bad thing. My phone buzzed with a text from Kara. Heard from Agent Chen. Trial date is set. Are you ready for this? I typed back, more than ready. The truth was, I was looking forward to the trial, to the chance to face Trent in court, to present the evidence publicly, to make sure everyone understood exactly what kind of man he was. But first, there was one more confrontation to handle. Lena arrived that evening to pick up more of her belongings. She'd been staying with her sister for 2 weeks, but the arrangement was clearly wearing on both of them. How's the apartment hunting going? I asked as she packed books into boxes. Slowly. Everything in my price range is either too small or too far from work. You could stay here until you find something suitable. She looked up from her packing. Really? Guest room. Separate lives. Just until you get back on your feet. Why would you offer that? It was a good question. Why was I offering to help the woman who'd betrayed me so thoroughly? Because spite is exhausting, I said finally. And because you're still my wife, at least on paper. For how much longer? That depends on how the divorce proceedings go, and how cooperative you are with the federal investigation. She nodded. Agent Chen called me. I'm testifying next week. Good. The more evidence they have, the longer Trent stays in prison. Finn, do you think there's any chance we could work through this? Any chance we could rebuild? I looked at the woman I'd married 5 years ago, trying to imagine a future where trust was possible again. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I can't see past the lies and the betrayal. But maybe, after the trial, after we've both had time to process everything that's happened, maybe we can find a way to be friends, co-conspirators in making sure Trent never hurts anyone else. It wasn't the answer she'd hoped for, but it was the most honest one I could give. I'll take it, she said. That night, Lena slept in the guest room while I lay awake in our former marital bed, thinking about the trial and what came after. Trent would go to prison. I was confident of that. The evidence was too strong, the victims too numerous. But what about me? What about the man I'd become in the process of bringing him down? I'd been methodical, calculating, ruthless. I'd manipulated people and situations to achieve my goals. I'd used information as a weapon and shown no mercy to those who'd wronged me. In short, I'd become exactly the kind of person I'd always claimed to despise. The irony wasn't lost on me. In my quest to expose a manipulator, I'd become one myself. In my effort to bring down a man who used people for his own ends, I'd done exactly the same thing. But unlike Trent, my victims had deserved what they got. Unlike him, I was fighting for justice rather than personal gain. At least, that's what I told myself. My phone buzzed with a final text of the day from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I have friends you don't know about. Resources you can't imagine. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. I smiled in the darkness and typed back, looking forward to meeting them. Let Trent bring his friends and resources. Let him try whatever desperate scheme he was planning from his jail cell. I'd beaten him once. I could do it again. The only difference was, next time I wouldn't bother with mercy. The real Finn Morell was just getting started. The federal courthouse in Portland looked like a monument to justice, all granite columns and soaring windows, the kind of building designed to intimidate and inspire in equal measure. I stood on the steps, adjusting my tie and watching the morning crowd of lawyers, defendants, and reporters flow through the entrance. Today was the day Trent Ardell would finally face the consequences of his actions. Agent Chen met me in the lobby, looking professional in a dark suit and carrying a briefcase thick with evidence. Ready for this? She asked. I've been ready for months. Good, because Ardell's defense team is going to try everything they can to discredit you. They're painting you as a vengeful husband who fabricated evidence to frame an innocent man. Let them try. The evidence speaks for itself. We walked through security and into the courtroom, where I got my first look at Trent since his arrest. He'd lost weight in jail, and his expensive clothes had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit, but his eyes still held the calculating intelligence that had made him so dangerous. When he saw me, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, the kind of smile a predator gives its prey. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Agent Chen presented financial records showing the systematic theft of money from multiple victims. Kara testified about the group chat logs and Trent's documented strategies for exploiting women. Isabella appeared via video link from Costa Rica, describing how Trent had convinced her to send money for fake business emergencies. One by one, the victims told their stories. 15 women from 12 states, each describing the same pattern of manipulation and fraud. The promises, the lies, the gradual extraction of money and trust. When it was my turn to testify, Trent's lawyer came at me hard. Mr. Morell, isn't it true that you orchestrated this entire investigation out of jealousy over your wife's relationship with my client? I investigated because I discovered evidence of criminal activity. Criminal activity or behavior you didn't approve of? Wire fraud is criminal activity, counselor. So is identity theft. So is bigamy. But you didn't discover these alleged crimes through normal channels, did you? You spied on your wife, hacked into private communications, and violated my client's privacy. I monitored my own network, in my own home, using systems I installed and maintained. Everything I discovered was obtained legally. The lawyer pressed harder, trying to paint me as an obsessed husband who'd fabricated evidence to destroy his wife's lover. But the facts were too strong, the documentation too thorough. When the defense presented their case, it was thin and desperate. Trent took the stand in his own defense, claiming he was the victim of an elaborate frame-up orchestrated by jealous ex-girlfriends and a vengeful husband. I never defrauded anyone, he said, looking directly at the jury. These women gave me money willingly, as gifts or loans between consenting adults. The prosecution has twisted normal relationship dynamics into something sinister. What about the group chat logs? The prosecutor asked on cross-examination. The messages where you discussed extracting money from Portland wife and rated your victims based on their financial potential? Those messages were taken out of context. They were jokes, locker room talk between friends, not evidence of criminal intent. Jokes? You called the women who trusted you marks and prospects. You discussed strategies for maximizing financial extraction. You rated their gullibility on a numerical scale. Trent's composure cracked slightly. Those women knew what they were getting into. They weren't naive victims. They were adults making choices. Adults making choices based on lies you told them, about your marital status, your financial situation, your intentions for the future. I never promised anyone anything. The prosecutor pulled up a series of text messages. Here's a message you sent to Isabella Restrepo. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. You're my soulmate, my future wife. Here's one to Sarah Mitchell. We're going to build an empire together, just you and me. And here's one to my client's wife. Leave him, and we'll start fresh in Costa Rica. Those were expressions of feeling in the moment when you needed money. Every one of these romantic declarations was followed within days by a request for financial assistance. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Trent's face went white as the judge read the sentence. 22 years in federal prison, full restitution to victims, and permanent prohibition from engaging in cryptocurrency or investment activities. As the bailiff led him away in shackles, Trent looked back at me one final time. "This isn't justice," he called out. "This is revenge." "Sometimes," I replied loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. "They're the same thing." Outside the courthouse, Agent Chen shook my hand. "Excellent work, Mr. Morell. Your investigation was thorough, professional, and absolutely crucial to this conviction." "What happens to the money?" "Restitution will be distributed to the victims based on documented losses. It won't make them whole, but it's something." Kara joined us on the courthouse steps, looking satisfied but tired. "So it's really over?" she asked. "The criminal case is, but there are still civil suits pending, and the other women deserve to know that justice was served." "What about you? What's next?" I thought about it. What was next for the man who'd brought down a sophisticated con artist? What was next for someone who'd discovered he had a talent for investigation and a taste for justice? "I'm thinking about a career change," I said. "Private investigation, maybe. Helping people who've been victimized by scammers and con artists." "The world needs more people like you," Agent Chen said. "Did it? I wasn't sure. The methods I'd used were effective but morally ambiguous. I'd manipulated people, invaded privacy, and shown no mercy to those who'd wronged me. But I'd also stopped a predator who'd hurt dozens of women. I'd brought justice to victims who might never have gotten it otherwise. I'd proven that sometimes the system works, if you know how to work the system." The drive home from Portland took 2 hours, giving me time to think about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, I'd been a naive husband who trusted his wife and believed in the basic goodness of people. Today, I was something else entirely. Lena was waiting for me when I got home, sitting on the front porch with 2 cups of coffee. "How did it go?" she asked. 22 years, full restitution." She nodded, tears starting to flow. I'm glad. I'm glad he can't hurt anyone else." "What about us? What happens now?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "I've been thinking about that for weeks, about whether we can rebuild, whether trust is possible again. And I think we're both different people than we were 6 months ago. You've become harder, more calculating. I've learned things about myself that I don't like." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should stop trying to fix something that was broken before Trent ever came along." It wasn't what I'd expected to hear, but it felt right. The marriage we'd had was built on assumptions and compromises that no longer existed. The people we'd become weren't compatible with the life we'd shared. "Divorce?" I asked. "Divorce. But friendly, if possible. Fair division of assets, no ugly custody battles over the house or the business. What will you do?" "Start over. Find out who I am when I'm not trying to be someone else's idea of the perfect wife." I looked at the woman I'd married, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. Not the idealized version I'd fallen in love with, not the betrayer who'd stolen my money and lied to my face, but a complex, flawed human being who'd made terrible choices and was trying to find a way forward. "I can live with that," I said. "Good, because I've already talked to a lawyer." I laughed, surprised by her directness. "Of course you have. I learned from watching you. Be prepared, document everything, think 3 steps ahead. Careful, that kind of thinking can change you." "Maybe I need to change." We sat on the porch drinking coffee and watching the sun set over our small Maine town. Tomorrow, we'd start the process of legally ending our marriage. Next week, Lena would move into her own apartment. Next month, we'd divide our possessions and go our separate ways. But tonight, for the first time in months, we were at peace. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about the trial. Interested in discussing a business proposition. Similar situation, different state. Are you available for consultation?" I showed the message to Lena, who read it and smiled. "Your new career is already starting," she said. "Looks like it. Are you going to take the case?" I thought about it. Somewhere out there, another con artist was victimizing innocent people. Another family was being destroyed by lies and manipulation. Another woman was about to learn that the man she trusted was actually her worst enemy. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." "Good. The world needs more people willing to fight back." As the stars came out over our quiet neighborhood, I realized that Lena was right. I had changed. The naive, trusting man who'd let himself be victimized was gone, replaced by someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to those who preyed on the innocent. Some people might call that a loss of innocence. I called it an education. And I was just getting started. The guest list for my old life had been canceled, but the invitation to my new one was just being sent out. Let the predators and con artists and manipulators of the world take notice. Finn Morel was open for business, and business was about to be very, very good.